I built this game in less than 48 hours, and these are 3 of the biggest things that I learned and that I'm taking away. Just before we start, I built this game in Unity. I coded it using Cursor, and I designed all of the assets in Illustrator, and all of the music and sound design is by my husband, Andrew McKean. So I'm going to play through and chat with you about my 3 biggest takeaways. The first thing is that I learned a really big lesson, which is don't get sucked into the things that don't matter. I spent a ton of time trying to get this particle system in the background to work how I wanted it to work, and that was before I had even made the functionality of my game. My game wasn't even playable, and I spent maybe 3 or 4 hours just trying to get these illustrations to float down in a way that I thought looked nice. And I think that that's a mistake that a lot of beginner game devs can make, is getting sucked into things that aren't necessarily crucial to the functionality of your game. So I would really recommend making a list of okay, what do I need to do in order for my game to function, to get me to the point that I can play test, and what are would be nice, could be cool things to add on if I have time. And I wish that I had done that at the beginning of this game, kind of separated that out into a list of could be nice, would be nice, and here's what absolutely needs to happen, because I'll definitely make that list for the next game that I build. The next huge thing that I learned is that image resolution really matters. So a big part of this game is the story, and maybe I'll just die and then you guys can see. Here we go. Whee! Bye. So when I was designing this game, I was thinking about the story, and basically the reason it's called MISBREW is because it's about a potion that this little wizard messes up, and I'll just show you the intro. MISBREW, verb, to make a mistake in the process of brewing. My little castle, potion and brews. This is our wizard. You can see he's brewing in his cauldron. And he's working on a recipe where the final step is to add 1 special bean. And then, there's always the fine print. Caution, adding more than 1 special bean may lead to interdimensional side effects. So then, of course, naturally his cat knocks over the entire bag of beans, and we fall into the world of the platformer. So basically, my big takeaway there is that you do really need to pay attention to the size of your image sprites. I really wanted my game to work on mobile browsers, not just desktop browsers, because I wanted people to be able to go onto itch on their phone and play this game. So right when I was okay, my game is done, I added touch controls, event systems, everything was working. You can use your finger to move left and right, and you could touch buttons with your finger. But the thing that wouldn't load was the freaking story scene on the phone. And I was so frustrated because I wanted to be done, and I'd been working on it for 48 hours straight, and I was so close to it being finished. But when you clicked on story scene, it was just gray. And at first I thought it was an error in my scripts, or I had miscompiled something. And after a lot of chatting with AI and researching and figuring it out, many hours gone by, I basically realized that the problem was my sprites were just too big, and it was working fine on desktop, but your phone and mobile browsers have a much smaller memory, which I didn't know because I am a beginner game dev. So I went through and I changed the entire game quality in the player settings to make it lower, and I also made sure all of my sprites were imported much lower, and that did wonders, and then it worked. So I think that that's definitely something that next time I build a game, I'm going to think about from the get-go. I really understand why there are so many games that are pixel-based. So I will definitely be thinking about my game resolution from the beginning so that I don't have to deal with the headache down the line that I did this time. And the last big lesson that I learned, or thing that I want to take away from building this game, is that you can be really creative based off of things that already exist. And what I'm talking about here is obviously this game is heavily leaning on Doodle Jump and is inspired by Doodle Jump. And I didn't necessarily invent anything new when it comes to how the game functions. But I think that a lot of people who are wanting to be creative and try something actually get stopped by that, and they think, oh my god, I have to come up with something like crazy inventive that doesn't exist and has never existed before. And while that's really exciting, and if you have an idea that works for that, great, you should pursue it. But I also don't think that you should let yourself be held back by necessarily not doing something that's fully original. And what I mean is that, like, don't necessarily copy exactly what's out there, but you can use what's out there as kind of a template for your creativity to shine within. So because the game mechanism was so simple and already existed, it's doodle jump, I was able to kind of know exactly how you would play the game. It opened up room for me to be really creative about the storytelling and the art style, and especially as a beginner game dev, I was able to learn a lot along the way without having to think of entirely new controls or a new mechanic for my game to function. So I guess all I would say is I encourage you to think about the bounds of what is out there, what exists, and use those as constraints to be creative within, not as discouragement of like, oh my god, everything already exists. Anyways, those are the 3 big things that I learned building this game in less than 48 hours. Don't get sucked into things that don't matter. Yes, oh my god, I almost died. Don't get sucked into things that don't matter. Yes, image resolution does make a difference. And lastly, be creative based off of what exists. It's totally allowed. If you liked this video, I'll be sharing more about my art and my game dev process on my channel. I'd love it if you play tested this game. Tell me what you think. Let me know what other ideas you have for this game and other games that I build. And thanks for being around.